When you look poor, the world does not attack you openly. It does something far more dangerous. It quietly withdraws its respect. And that withdrawal changes everything around you without you even realizing it. At first, you walk into rooms and conversations slow, not because people are listening, but because they are deciding how little they need to care. Your words still come out the same, but they land lighter, as if gravity itself has weakened around you. This is not imagination. This is a pattern as old as power itself, and Machiavelli understood it long before modern psychology gave it a name. He knew that people do not judge truth first. They judge appearance, and from that single judgment, an entire reality is constructed around you. The tragedy is that poverty is not only measured in money, it is measured in signals, posture, tone, clothing, confidence, silence, and the way the world has trained you to expect nothing. When you look, poor people interrupt you more easily. They question your ideas not because they are wrong, but because they came from you. They ask for proof where others are believed instantly. They smile less genuinely. They negotiate harder. They offer less and demand more. And the cruelest part is that they believe they are being fair. They do not feel like villains. They feel logical. Machiavelli wrote for rulers, but he was really writing about perception. He knew that power lives in the minds of others, long before it lives in armies or gold. If people perceive weakness, they will test it. If they perceive lack, they will exploit it. If they perceive poverty, they will assume desperation, and desperation invites domination. You are no longer treated as a participant in the game, but as a resource to be used or ignored. There is a moment many people experience but rarely talk about. The moment you realize your effort is invisible. You work harder than others, yet you are overlooked. You speak carefully, yet you are misunderstood. You show loyalty, yet you are replaceable. And slowly, a quiet question begins to grow inside you. What is wrong with me? But the answer is uncomfortable because it is not about your character or your intelligence. It is about the story your appearance tells before you ever open your mouth. Looking poor creates a silent narrative. People assume you need them more than they need you. They assume you will tolerate disrespect because you have fewer options. They assume you will accept less because you are grateful to be included. This shifts the balance of every interaction. Negotiations, friendships, romance, authority, even kindness becomes conditional. When someone helps you, they expect submission in return. Machiavelli would say this is not cruelty, it is human nature. He observed that people are loyal when it costs them nothing, and ruthless when advantage appears. Looking poor signals that you cannot retaliate, that you cannot withdraw resources, that you cannot impose consequences, and where there are no consequences, there is no respect. What makes this dynamic truly dangerous is how it reshapes you from the inside. Over time, you start speaking softer, you hesitate before asserting boundaries, you over-explain, you apologize preemptively, you try to earn what should be given freely. And each of these behaviors reinforces the original perception. The world responds not to who you are, but to who you appear to be. And slowly you become trapped in a loop where perception creates behavior, and behavior confirms perception. This is why Machiavelli warned that it is safer to be feared than loved. But what he truly meant is that it is fatal to be seen as weak. Fear was simply a form of perceived power, and poverty, whether financial or symbolic, erodes that perception. It strips away the invisible armor that allows a person to move through the world without being tested at every step. Think about how differently advice is received based on who gives it. The same words spoken by a well-dressed, confident figure are labeled insight, while spoken by someone who looks poor, they are labeled opinion or complaint. The idea does not change, only the messenger does, and this is why merit alone rarely wins. Power decides what counts as merit. Machiavelli understood that rulers staged their image deliberately, not out of vanity, but out of survival. They wore symbols, they controlled ceremonies, they curated distance because they knew familiarity breeds contempt, and contempt invites challenge. Looking poor collapses distance. It invites familiarity without respect. People feel entitled to your time, your energy, your explanations. This is why everything seems to work against you. It is not bad luck. It is not fate. It is not a curse. It is a system responding exactly as designed. When signals of scarcity are present, systems of power adjust accordingly. Doors do not close violently. They simply never open. Invitations stop. Advice turns into orders. Opportunities are given to those who look like they belong to abundance. The most painful part is watching people treat you differently the moment your appearance changes. When you dress better, when you speak slower, when you stop chasing approval, suddenly the world softens. People listen, they wait, they ask instead of assume. And you realize something that should unsettle everyone. Respect was never about morality. It was about leverage. Machiavelli would tell you that changing how you are treated does not begin with demanding fairness. It begins with changing perception, because people rarely rise to your potential, but they always fall to their assumptions. And when the assumption is poverty, everything becomes a test. You must pass again and again. Yet this is not a story meant to leave you bitter. It is meant to make you aware. Awareness is power. The moment you see the game, you stop internalizing its outcomes. You stop blaming yourself for structural reactions. You begin to understand that silence can be strength, that restraint can signal control, that not explaining everything can restore balance. Machiavelli believed that those who cannot command fear must command respect, and those who cannot command respect must at least remove the invitation to disrespect. This does not require wealth overnight. It requires discipline in how you present, how you speak, how you choose silence over justification. When you stop advertising need, when you stop chasing validation, when you stop performing gratitude for basic decency, something shifts. The world recalibrates. People adjust their tone. They become cautious. They sense limits even if they cannot name them. And this is the beginning of reclaiming power, not through aggression, but through controlled presence. Looking poor is not just about money. It is about signals, and signals can be changed slowly, deliberately, strategically. Machiavelli would not ask you to become cruel. He would ask you to become unreadable, to stop giving the world free access to your inner state, to understand that dignity is not requested, it is enforced by consistency. The world works against those it believes it can afford to lose. And the moment it believes losing you would cost something, the rules begin to change. The shift does not happen loudly. It happens in small moments that most people overlook. The pause before someone interrupts you, the way eyes stay on you a second longer, the change in how questions are asked rather than commands. These moments are not random. They are responses to a new signal and that says this person is not easily moved, not easily pressured, not easily dismissed. Machiavelli would remind you that power never announces itself. It waits to be recognized. And when you stop looking poor in spirit, not just in appearance, the world begins to test you differently. It no longer assumes it can take without consequence. Instead, it probes cautiously, searching for boundaries. The same people who once overlooked you now try to read you. This is where most people make a mistake. They rush to prove themselves. They overshare their plans, their struggles, their dreams, believing transparency will earn trust. But Machiavelli warned against this. He knew that mystery creates distance, and distance preserves authority. When people do not fully understand you, they hesitate, and hesitation is the space where respect grows. Looking poor teaches the world that you are an open book, that your reactions are predictable, that your needs are visible, and visibility without leverage is vulnerability. The moment you learn to withhold reaction, to control your emotional economy, you disrupt that expectation. You are no longer easy to extract from. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming selective. Warmth without boundaries invites consumption. Strength without noise invites caution. When you stop reacting immediately, when you allow silence to stretch conversations, when you do not rush to fill gaps, people feel it. They feel something has changed, even if they cannot articulate it. Machiavelli understood that humans are guided less by reason and more by impressions. And impressions are formed faster than truth. When you look, poor people project stories onto you, stories of desperation, of compliance, of limitation, and they treat those stories as fact until proven otherwise, which means you spend your life trying to undo assumptions you never agreed to. The real escape is not convincing them you are capable. It is removing their confidence that you are disposable. Once that confidence is gone, behavior changes naturally. There is less entitlement, less pressure, less casual disrespect. You begin to notice how differently silence functions. Silence from someone perceived as weak feels awkward. Silence from someone perceived as strong feels deliberate. This is why controlling your responses matters. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every demand deserves acknowledgement. Machiavelli would say that power is the ability to choose when to act and when to remain still. Poverty removes that choice because urgency forces reaction. But the moment you reclaim control over your time, your tone, your energy, you step out of that trap. This is why some people with very little money still command respect while others with more remain invisible. They understand signaling. They understand that posture, pace, eye contact, and restraint speak before words do. They do not try to look rich. They try to look unmovable. The world is always calculating who needs who more, who can walk away, who can endure loss. Looking poor tells the world you cannot afford to walk away, so people push. Knowing this changes everything. You stop chasing every opportunity. You stop begging for inclusion. You let absence do the work presence once tried to do. At first, this feels dangerous because the old pattern taught you survival through compliance. But Machiavelli would tell you that excessive compliance invites domination, not safety. The world does not protect those who surrender early. It exploits them. Slowly, as you change your signals, relationships reorganize. Some people disappear because they were only comfortable when you were beneath them. Others return with new respect, unsure of where they stand. And this uncertainty is not cruelty, it is balance being restored. You realize then that the world was never against you personally. It was responding to what it thought you represented, and representation is power. When you stop looking poor in energy posture and self-valuation, you are no longer treated as an accessory to other people's ambitions. You become a variable that must be considered. Machiavelli did not believe in fairness. He believed in understanding reality as it is. And reality is this: people respond to strength long before they respond to goodness. The moment you accept this without bitterness, you gain clarity. You stop wasting energy trying to be seen by those invested in overlooking you. You build quietly. You move carefully. You let results speak instead of explanations. And one day, without announcement, you notice that the same world that once worked against you now pauses before acting around you, not because it loves you, not because it understands you, but because it senses that misjudging you would come at a cost. That is the moment Machiavelli was pointing toward: not wealth, not dominance, but the end of being invisible, the end of being easy. And once you are no longer easy, everything begins to change.